It's April 1995. Typical weather in Los Angeles with the highs in the 80s and the lows in the mid-50s. The UCLA Bruins men's basketball team wins an unprecedented 11th national championship. This is the Major League Baseball players' strike ends after more than 200 days. Legendary sports anchor Howard Cosell dies, as does silver screen star Ginger Rogers. But it's the Oklahoma City bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building that dominates the headlines. 168 people are killed, 19 of them children. At that time in history, the worst act of domestic terrorism ever on U.S. soil. Meanwhile, on the ninth floor of the Criminal Courts Building in downtown Los Angeles, the families of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman are in the courtroom, bearing witness on behalf of their murdered loved ones, as the People versus OJ Simpson continues. This episode of OJ25 marks a turning point in the prosecution's case. We move from the discovery of the Bundy and Rockingham crime scenes to the collection of evidence by two criminalists. It's a big problem for the prosecution and a big opportunity for the defense. I'm Roger Cossack, and this is OJ25.
All right, let's have the jurors. People's next witness.
Can you call Dennis Fung to the stand?
My name is Dennis Fung, D-E-N-N-I-S-F-U-N-G.
Good morning, Mr. Fung. What is your occupation?
I am a criminalist employed by the Los Angeles Police Department.
When you are collecting an item which could contain fingerprints from the perpetrator or perpetrators of a crime, you would not touch that item with your bare hand, would you, when collecting it?
I would try not to.
Nobody could have cross-examined Dennis Fung the way Barry Scheck did. It was just absolutely remarkable.
Well, you say you try not to. It would be wrong to do that, wouldn't it?
If it was for prints, yes.
When you were at the crime scene on June 13th and you saw that envelope, did you consider the possibility that the envelope might have fingerprints on it from one of the killers?
There could have been fingerprints on the envelope.
And you thought about that then?
Yes.
Did you touch that envelope with your bare hands while collecting it, Mr. Fung?
No.
Sure of that?
Yes.
No question about it in your mind?
Yes.
Do you recall Andrea Mazzola kneeling on the ground and passing you that envelope, which you grasped with an ungloved bare hand?
No, I don't.
The one witness in the whole trial who stayed on the witness stand the longest was Dennis Fung. That was sort of exhibit number one in terms of where the defense focus was going.
There. There. How about that, Mr. Fung? How about that picture, Mr. Fung? Does that refresh your recollection that you took the envelope from Andrea Mazzola with your bare hand?
When you pointed out the time frame, it makes it even more sure in my mind that that is not the envelope, because we did not start picking up evidence until well after the coroners were gone.
I think Barry Scheck kind of summed it up when he said, "What about that, Mr. Fung?"
I'd like to show you this piece of videotape, Mr. Fung. Now, this is Miss Mazzola putting the hat in the bag, correct? Now, you remember that Mr. Jacobo from the coroner's office, he was the gentleman in the blue suit, the blue jumpsuit.
Yes.
I'd like you to watch very carefully in the frame these shoes. See those shoes? See that those blue pants?
Yes.
That's Mr. Jacobo, isn't it?
Appears to be, yes.
So you did begin evidence collection before the coroner's left.
Yes.
So what you said before wasn't true.
A homicide cop really knows to be a homicide cop after he's made a complete ass of on the stand by a defense lawyer. That's when you learn your trade, how to handle these things. Dennis didn't have an idea, and they ate his lunch.
Wasn't that a mistake?
I don't think so.
You're the one in charge of gathering the evidence?
I'm in charge of gathering evidence.
You would have looked at it, right?
I don't know.
And that testimony wasn't accurate, was it?
I don't recall.
Do you know one way or the other?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
You don't have an independent recollection
I don't know if I did.
of whether he had gloves or not?
I didn't make a note of it.
Isn't that right?
That's wrong.
Weren't you seriously concerned?
That's apparent to me now, yes?
Barry Scheck was amazing. He was amazing. He is a pistol, as you know, in the conference room, looking at the videos, poring over them with all of this energy and excitement.
Mr. Fung or some of the photographers, whoever else was at the scene, somebody moved that glove back into the position that we see it on the close-up photograph. We know this glove has been moved. We see two photographs, the one where Furman is pointing at it, position number 1, the second photograph, position number 2. We know that Mr. Goldman's body was dragged through that 30-inch area. This appears to be you putting down evidence tags, correct?
Yes.
All right. Looking at that, would you agree, or do you agree, that that looks to be a brown three-dimensional object?
Appears to be a dark object.
Now, if that were the glove, Mr. Fung, that would be a third position, would it not? You know it's the glove, don't you?
I don't know that.
You know it's the glove, and you just got caught by this videotape, isn't that right?
All right, good morning, Mr. Fung. You're reminded you were still under oath, sir. Mr. Scheck, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Morning, Mr. Fung.
Good morning.
Mr. Fung, you mentioned yesterday in your testimony that you were aware that there was a protocol and procedures manual at SID.
I am aware of a manual. I don't know if it's in effect or not, though.
All of this evidence collected, whether at Bundy or Rockingham or wherever, went through the LAPD lab. That laboratory is a cesspool of contamination. Not up to speed, not up to standard. We think we can conclusively indicate that during the course of the testimony in this case.
Why did you decide that you were going to become the person in charge of the investigation as opposed to Andrea Mazzola?
When I found out that it was a high-profile case and it was a complicated scene, I decided that she should, in a sense, take the back seat.
Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola are the LAPD criminalists who were there at the two scenes, Rockingham and Bundy. And Dennis Fung is the senior one. He's a criminalist 3. He's been doing this for 10 years. But Andrea Mazzola, she's a bit of a rookie. This is only her 3rd crime scene, and she's the one collecting most of this blood evidence.
You'll find the evidence will show that the LAPD, in its infinite wisdom in this case, assigned a trainee named Mazzola, who was the officer in charge of collecting this evidence. This was her 3rd crime scene.
Criminalist Mazzola was the primary criminalist on call that weekend.
Incidentally, is that her official designation, criminalist?
Yes.
Is she a trainee?
No, she's a criminalist.
Andrea Mazzola, Andrea-Mazzola.
At the Los Angeles Police Department Crime Lab, do they have a position that's known as criminalist trainee?
No.
What date is your first day at work, ma'am?
January 24th.
January 24th? On January 23rd, you were not a criminalist 1, is that right?
That's correct.
And on January 23rd, you had no prior experience doing crime scene collection, is that right?
That's correct.
On January 24th, you become a criminalist 1, is that right?
That's right.
As of January 24th, though, you still had no experience doing any crime scene collection, is that correct?
That's correct.
As of June 13th, 1994, you were still a trainee, weren't you?
I was a criminalist 1.
Court TV's trial memos from the OJ Simpson case underscore the importance of Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola's cross-examinations.
The cross-examination of Fung and the other technical witnesses is critical to the defense. Arguably, the DNA evidence will speak for itself. So this is the defense's only opportunity to knock the wind out of the blood evidence by proving it was improperly collected, preserved, and tested.
Did you tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola, a person who was in training, swatched those blood drops 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52?
I don't recall that I did tell them that.
Did you or did you not tell the grand jury that Andrea Mazzola participated in swatching those blood drops at Bundy?
No,
The answer is no, you didn't tell them, right?
that's correct.
Okay. Looking at the evidence collected in this case, is it true that Miss Mazzola was the one who swatched item 47? That's the first blood drop at Bundy, right?
Yes.
She did 48,
Yes.
49,
Yes.
50,
Yes.
52.
Yes.
That's the one you're telling us you weren't even there to observe her do the swatching.
I don't recall being there, no.
And those were critical items in this case.
Barry Scheck was the only person on that defense team, I believe, that wasn't concerned about whether OJ Simpson was guilty or innocent. All he cared about was the science of the DNA. How was the evidence handled? Was it mishandled? What was the chain of custody?
The prosecution believes the presence of Ron and Nicole's blood in the Bronco is proof of OJ Simpson's guilt. The defense tries to undermine this evidence any way it can.
You didn't think it was necessary to put up a yellow tape to protect the Bronco in the morning.
Yes.
Isn't the best possible protection the standard protection to have yellow tapes and officers?
In this moment where Barry Scheck is hitting his stride, take a look at the reaction of OJ Simpson.
That is one method.
It's amazing that even he is shocked by what he's hearing inside that courtroom.
The defendant's Bronco that you earlier saw in Rockingham proved to be locked. It was towed in a locked condition to the print shed, which is an area where the police keep large items that need to be fingerprinted, and did not open it until the 14th when they opened it by use of a Slim Jim. There's blood on the console, consistent with a mixture of the defendant and Ron Goldman. This blood stain was on the console. This was recovered later in time, after the 14th. That is consistent with a mixture of the defendant, Ron Goldman, and Nicole Brown.
And to your knowledge, you never saw the stain in the position that's marked in this photograph, 305.
I didn't make a note of it.
Did you swatch anything from that?
No, not that area.
Did you see it and decide not to swatch something? Is that your testimony?
Saying that's what may have happened.
The defense argument was that the evidence was either corrupted, contaminated, or that it was planted.
And you're saying that's what may have happened because if 305 weren't there on June 14th, but it were there on August 26th, that wouldn't be very good, would it? Well, wait a second. If you don't know one way or the other,
I'm not sure.
Bruce, are you disappointed with how Dennis Fung's testimony is going? And secondly, do you think he was adequately prepared for the cross-examination?
you didn't think it was necessary?
Not at that time.
You don't think it was a mistake? Well, at what time?
Yes, I think he was adequately prepared.
Can you explain to us why there's a photograph number 115 taken on the 13th and a number 115 in the photographs on July the 3rd?
We had anticipated some witnesses being much more comfortable on the witness stand compared to others.
The photo ID 115 was done on June 13th, before item numbers could be assigned.
The evidence has indeed been coming out exactly the way we expected it to come out.
By July the 3rd, 114 items of evidence had been booked into property division, and that was the next item number that was going to be used.
I was shocked that the police didn't realize the eye of the world would be on them, and if they did anything wrong, they'd be caught.
At some later point on July the 3rd of 1994, did you return to the Bundy location for the purposes of collecting some additional stains?
Yes, I was requested to respond to 875 South Bundy by telephone. Detective Lang.
You said in your testimony you saw some blood spots on the rear gate there at Bundy. June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
Those spots have been pointed out to you by Detective Phillips?
That's correct.
You in turn pointed them out to Mr. Fung?
That's correct.
Did you direct Mr. Fung to collect those particular blood spots?
I directed him to do that, and I believe I mentioned to check the entire gate.
All right. And you expected that to be done, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Do you specifically recall having seen that stain when you were at the location on the 13th?
No, I do not.
Do you have a specific recall of whether it was pointed out to you?
No, I do not.
Had you known of that, would you have collected that?
Yes.
Now, it was not done on June 13th, was it?
No.
In fact, it was not done until July 3rd, some 3 weeks later, is that right?
That's correct.
Is this a photograph that was taken on the 13th of June?
13th of June, yes.
Right. Did you have the opportunity to compare that photograph to the photographs which were taken on July 3rd at the time that you collected 115, 116, and 117?
Yes.
Does the stain in the 13th photograph appear to be in the same configuration and same location as the stain that was collected on July the 3rd?
Yes.
Didn't you tell us on direct examination that you saw a mark here on the gate which you thought could correspond to a blood drop that you saw on July 3rd?
Yes.
And that blood drop was designated on July 3rd to be item number 115 in this case?
Yes.
July 3rd, there was also a blood drop that was marked 116.
Yes.
That's what you saw on July 3rd?
Yes.
Let's look back at the picture of the gate on June 13th. Where is it, Mr. Fung?
I can't see it in the photograph.
This item is a copy of the evidence collection sheet from Bundy, and what you did is you reconstructed who collected what. When did you do that?
That was sometime after the crime scene had been done.
How many months?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Was this your decision?
It had become an issue, and we decided to fill that in as best we could.
Who's the we?
Criminalist Mazzola and myself.
Mr. Mazzola, would you agree that at least on June 13th, in these notes, Dennis Fung did not keep complete field notes?
Yes.
You see in the Elmo is that question that you have to fill out. Has the scene been altered? If so, by whom and how? Correct?
That's what it says.
On this box, is there not a question mark?
Yes, there is.
Did you put that in there?
No.
Did Miss Mazzola put that in there to your knowledge?
I think she asked me what to put in that box. And I said, put a question mark there.
In a trial in which over 100 witnesses are expected to testify, we appear to be hopelessly wed to witness number 40, criminalist Dennis Fung. Barry Scheck's exhaustive cross-examination ventured into new territory today by suggesting Dennis Fung is a liar.
Did he do anything wrong? There's a couple of things. He did some work and he had Mazzola sign off on it. Well, when you get busy, sometimes, hey, you picked that up. Would you mind signing this one? It was harmless. It didn't mean anything.
Didn't you believe that you were required to fill out these reports completely?
I believe so, yes.
Not just to fill out portions, but to fill them out in totality. Isn't that right?
Yes.
No one ever said that this was going to be a cakewalk. It's a difficult case, and we're up against some very well-financed and able defense lawyers.
As OJ25 continues, the trial takes an unexpected turn as Judge Ito adopts a stern, get-tough attitude when racial tensions among jurors surface. This, as the defense continues its attack on criminalist Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola as incompetent.
Is there a refrigerator in the crime scene processing truck?
There is one, yes.
Didn't use that?
No. That is because the refrigerator, it stops working after several hours.
Isn't it your responsibility as a criminalist under the rules to make sure that the equipment is functioning in the crime scene processing truck?
As best I can.
Mr. Fung, just to return briefly to one point, you recall that we discussed Barry Fisher's book, Techniques of Crime Scene Investigation.
Yes.
Do you recall in the edition of Fisher that you read whether Mr. Fisher indicates that it's a certainty that wet or damp bloodstains packaged in airtight containers such as plastic bags will be useless as evidence in a matter of days?
I don't recall that, but that's what it says in this book.
They found one bindle. When you pick up blood samples, you bindle them. You have to bindle them when they're dry or they'll degrade. He had one sample that wasn't completely dry. He bindled it. They made a big stink out of it. Oh, now it's contaminated.
Thus, storing bloodstains that are still damp in airtight containers or in a warm environment will accelerate deterioration of the specimen.
That's correct.
There were mistakes that were made. There were better processes that should have been employed.
Conversely, an air-dried sample stored in a paper bag at room temperature or better under refrigeration will retain its evidentiary usefulness for a significantly longer period of time.
That's correct.
Everything got twisted and turned, everything. But that was, that was the goal of the defense, is to throw enough, what, on the wall and hopefully something would stick.
All this nonsense went on about contamination, and he did not know how to handle it.
Would you not agree that the best practice would be to let the samples air dry at the scene?
No, not necessarily.
Would that not be the way to achieve the maximum benefit in terms of preserving the evidence?
Not necessarily.
There were certainly things that could have been done better. Did it change ultimately what evidence was found? I don't think so.
If blood is contaminated, it doesn't yield a result of a different person, so to speak. It just becomes contaminated. But they drill that home all the time. It's contaminated, it's proving something that didn't exist.
You began collecting the blood drops at Bundy at what time?
Approximately 11 o'clock, 11:30, around then.
And you put those plastic bags inside coin envelopes?
Yes.
You put the coin envelopes eventually into a large brown paper bag?
Yes.
And you put those brown paper bags on the floor of the crime scene processing truck at some time that afternoon?
Yes.
And the sun was shining?
The sun was shining.
And it was hot inside that truck?
There were periods when I went out to the truck to make sure it wasn't getting too hot.
By what means? By opening the doors and waving your hands there?
Periodically, I would go to the truck to see if it was getting hot or not.
That was getting hot, wasn't it?
It was getting warm.
There were probably some mistakes, I don't doubt that, but nothing that changed anything.
Would you agree, Ms. Mazzola, that the refrigerator worked at least some of the time?
I was aware that it worked some of the time, yes.
And that it would work for several hours before eventually the battery going dead?
I wasn't sure how long it would work.
You didn't find out how long it did work for?
No.
The evidence is indisputable. Nobody else's blood evidence, nobody else's anything except his.
Well, would you agree, Ms. Mazzola, that even a few hours of keeping wet blood swatches in a refrigerator is better than not keeping them there at all?
We had 4 labs involved in this case. Now, are they part of this conspiracy too?
It's just so much baloney.
This day has not gone well. It started off with many different arguments over many contentious items.
I give up.
That's what caused me to read the sanction instruction to the jury.
I really don't think that I should have to reveal this now.
Deputies, there are people in the back row who are conversing next to the photographers. Would you eject them from the courtroom, please?
These items were sent to Albany. They were taken out of the freezer for extended periods of time.
Mr. Neufeld, stop while you're ahead. Today, I don't care about it.
I really think that's wrong.
Later this week, I'll care about it. Ms. Clark, didn't I just say we'll address this later? I'm not asking you to do it. Wait, I'm not interested in this issue. That means end of argument. I don't want to hear anymore. I'm tired of this. It's been a bad day today.
We do not want a mistrial. Let me make it clear. We don't want a mistrial in this case. We want to go forward with this jury. It's not us. In fact, we fought her release. We felt it was that she should not be released from this jury. Make that absolutely clear to everybody.
All right, let the record reflect we've been joined by all the remaining members of our jury panel. Mrs. Robertson, would you please draw the number of an alternate juror?
Juror number 795, please have a seat in seat number 9.
The following statements by Harris are likely of particular concern to Judge Ito. That she can think of a couple of jurors who think OJ Simpson is guilty suggests many deliberations have been going on. She stated off camera that the jurors have in fact been discussing the case and that there is racial tension within the jury.
So after Jeanette Harris's big K-Cal interview, Judge Ito's like, I got to do something here. Subpoenas her because he's got to get information about things that she was saying. And rule number 1 when it comes to a jury, you're not allowed to talk about the case until you deliberate. And that's one of the things she's talking about in the interview on television. So Judge Ito's got to get to the bottom of it.
Can you comment about a dismissed juror, the comments made by Jeanette Harris?
Comments made by any jurors who are dismissed, at least I have always learned to take with a little grain of salt.
Early on in the case, I would say there was a totally significant racial divide. Some of what she said, I might have been in agreement with. The part about the people talking about it, I myself totally was not aware of it.
There is an article in this week's Los Angeles Sentinel, a local newspaper, which talks about Jeanette Harris and our role with the criminal justice system. I think the defense team feels very strongly about this, that this lady deserves accolades for her willingness to come forward and tell the truth about the system.
Since the murders, the Los Angeles Sentinel has distinguished itself with its pro-Simpson, anti-LAPD coverage of the trial, an editorial philosophy described by some as advocacy journalism.
Newspapers like the LA Sentinel, Chicago Defender, Amsterdam News, the Afro-American are covering this trial from a different perspective. They're giving OJ the benefit of the doubt because we understand the history of black men being falsely accused.
The LA Sentinel had a reporter, Dennis Schatzman, who was their primary eyes and ears in the courtroom and was pretty much there most days of the trial.
Dennis Schatzman's daily stories are syndicated in more than 250 black-owned newspapers nationwide. He quotes a trial observer who notes that Harris not only threw a monkey wrench into this trial, she threw a whole darn sledgehammer into it. His article about Jeanette Harris' dismissal describes her allegations that prosecutors are targeting black female jurors and that white jurors are getting preferential treatment.
So Judge Ito finds out from Jeanette Harris that there may be some racial tensions taking place behind closed doors, and the sheriff's deputies may be playing a part in all of it. You're talking about allegations of different workout times for black jurors and white jurors, black and white movie controversies, not the films themselves, but one room for black people to watch the movie and another one for white people to watch a movie.
It's not the movies to watch, it's what they did about it. To create another jury room, then have the non-minority jurors get all the movies first, and nobody in the other room can even watch them until they finished in the first room. That's outrageous. This is not 1930, this is 1995.
They set up 2 viewing areas, and so the one viewing area that was up at the front next to the elevator, because there were more black women than anything else there, of course they're all there, but even the whites that were also women would congregate all in that same room. So you had a mixture of whites and blacks in that room. Now in the room in the back, I would say that room was all blacks.
It's incumbent upon the court to talk to each member of the jury and get that individual juror's opinions and comments about what's been going on.
So now that some deputies have been potentially implicated in what's going on here, the judge has to bring in the entire jury and speak with them individually to find out what they're thinking. And some of the jurors had problems with some of the deputies, so the judge steps in, removes those deputies, but there were other jurors that actually liked those deputies, and they are now revolting and refusing to go to court. I mean, the big picture here is this is a very fragile situation, and we've got months to go.
These jurors are not prisoners. Sequestration means that you're locked up, but doesn't mean that you're being guarded or your rights are being invaded.
Juror Lon Cryer kept a personal journal and wrote about what life was like for the sequestered jurors.
We were directed by the court to meet at a vacant lot near Dodger Stadium to be transported to our new digs for possibly up to 6 months. We were taken on a slow caravan through downtown LA and pulled into the driveway of the Hotel Intercontinental in the California Plaza. When I first got in that room, I just knew that there were bugs and monitors in my room. I just knew it. I'm just like, I know that they're keeping track of what you're doing here.
I believe that the sheriff does a very good job, fair, impartial.
The scrutiny of the deputies themselves, it was made for a very strange experience. And I'll always say, the deputies that oversaw us at the beginning of the trial, I mean, these guys were like ruthless people.
No games played that I'm aware of.
Before this trial started, I asked to have another entity other than the Sheriff's Department and law enforcement to sit with these people, to try to get civilian court attendance.
I tried to explain to some of my fellow jurors also, are you aware that all of these LA County Sheriff's deputies, they all have to spend time in the LA County prison system? Oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, so again, this is the reason why you feel like you're being treated like a prison, because these guys, that's all they're used to dealing with.
This is what happens in America, in Los Angeles at this time. It's got to stop.
Redirect examination, Mr. Goldberg.
Mr. Fung, let me see if I have this. Were you involved together with Detective Lang, Detective Furman, Detective Van Adder, Michelle Kessler, and her husband, whoever that might be, in a conspiracy against this defendant?
What's the objection? Grounds? Oral.
No.
Ms. Mazzola, are you part of some kind of police conspiracy involving a number of people to frame the defendant in this case?
No, I'm not.
Were you involved in some kind of a conspiracy with Andrea Mazzola to cover up receiving some item with your bare hands?
No.
Are you involved in any cover-up with respect to this case, Ms. Mazzola?
No.
Were you involved in any conspiracy with Detective Van Adder to allow him to keep a vial overnight so that he could do with it what he pleased?
No.
There's only one person that's worse than a dirty cop who would plant evidence in a murder case, and that's someone who would falsely accuse a good cop of planting evidence. That's the only person worse than that.
In your experience, have you ever before been in a situation where a detective obtained a blood sample from a suspect and instead of booking it downtown where it was taken, drive it all the way back to a crime scene? Has that ever happened in your experience?
I can't remember one instance where that's happened.
So Fung and Mazzola, while they're on the stand, not only responding to their own mistakes that they made, I mean, the defense has put them on the ropes where they now have to account for mistakes made by other people, like the two lead investigators.
To your knowledge, there is a place in Parker Center where this blood vial could have been booked and refrigerated if a DR number had been obtained. You know that.
Blood samples can be booked down at Parker Center.
If you're wanting to find fault in a police force, then you think that the way that Tom Lang and Phil Van Adder transferred evidence from one place to the other is in some way wrong and deceitful.
I knew that the criminalist was at Rockingham, and as soon as the criminalist takes custody of an evidence item, essentially I consider that booked. I knew he was there. I hand carried it to him for the chain of custody and to protect that piece of evidence.
And where was the criminalist when you gave him the blood sample at Rockingham?
Standing right inside the front door. He was preparing to leave.
If you believe in the process and you believe that law enforcement say, we do this all the time, this is how we always do it, then you don't think anything of it. But if you're looking to find fault, then that looks bad.
You got inside to Rockingham, and that's when you saw Detective Van Adder in the foyer.
At some point after I went in, yes.
And was Detective Van Adder carrying a black duffel bag?
I don't recall if he was or not.
And was Detective Van Adder carrying a clipboard?
I don't recall if he was or not.
All you remember is that he had this gray manila envelope.
I do remember him giving it to me.
Mr. Fung, are you having some trouble keeping this story straight about getting the blood sample from Detective Van Adder from Rockingham?
Sustained. Counsel, that's not a proper question.
After you got the envelope from Detective Van Adder, you asked somebody to get you a trash bag.
I asked somebody to get me a bag so that I wouldn't have to carry the envelope out in plain view of the media.
You certainly wouldn't want to have that blood vial broken.
No, I wouldn't.
That's a piece of evidence that you want to carry with a great deal of care.
Yes.
And if you're giving it to Miss Mazzola, you're going to want her to carry it with a great deal of care.
Yes.
And you're telling us when you handed her the blood vial in the manila envelope that's inside the plastic bag, you didn't say to her, Miss Mazzola, here's the blood sample from Mr. Simpson that I was just given by Detective Van Adder. Carry it carefully.
I don't remember saying that.
I think there was a lot of sloppy work done by the criminalists. I think there were a lot of unusual things that happened, like carrying blood around in your pocket and going to different places.
Phil Van Adder walked around with the blood in his pocket. No, he didn't. Phil takes the analyzed evidence envelope with these two seals on it, signed and everything else, to the criminalist who happened to be at Rockingham. He didn't put it in his pocket. It's a big envelope. He took it. In fact, there's a media video that actually shows this. Him walking to the front entrance of Rockingham, turning this gray-colored analyzed evidence envelope over to Dennis Fung, who receives it and eventually books it into evidence. That's the real story about what happened to the blood.
Detective Lang had asked if he could see the glove from Rockingham, and I brought the bag over to him.
You recognize someone there holding a brown paper bag?
Yes,
Who's that?
that's the criminalist, Mr. Fung.
And do you recall what was in that brown paper bag?
Yes, there was a glove, I believe. This is the time where he showed me the glove from Rockingham that I wanted to see.
And why did you want him to bring the brown paper bag to you over where the left-handed glove was located?
I wanted to visually compare both gloves to see if they were a possibility of a match.
And what did you determine?
In my mind, they matched.
And when he said, "I'd like to see the glove from Rockingham," did you say to him, "Detective Lang, it's not a very good idea for me to bring this glove from Rockingham into the middle of the Bundy crime scene"?
I knew that I would have to be cautious with the evidence.
Barry is going to tell us he got a hold of Fung, and they're going to talk about the scene being corrupted.
You knew when he made that request of you that that request was a basic violation of sound crime scene procedures.
I knew there was a risk, but it was important to him at that time to further his investigation.
I think he was dishonest in the way he approached this by saying about the contamination of a crime scene and how it was contaminated.
You had concerns that there was a terrible danger of cross-contamination.
I knew there was a danger for cross-contamination, yes.
Knowing damn well that there's no such thing as a crime scene that is not contaminated.
When Detective Lang made this request to you, you resolved in your own mind, "I know it's dangerous, but I'll bring the glove into the area of the crime scene, but I won't open it up for him."
But I won't take the glove out of the bag.
Won't take the glove out of the bag.
Yes,
Had you resolved in your own mind whether you would even open it up?
I would open it up.
You would have opened it up?
Yes.
Did you open it up while you were in the crime scene? Have him look.
I don't think so.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
And it's fair enough to say, isn't it, that if you'd done that, that would have been a mistake.
I wouldn't call it a mistake, no.
Well, wouldn't that be something that you were doing against your better judgment at the request of Detective Lang?
Ideally, the glove should have been looked at the crime scene truck.
Dennis hadn't been there before. He was caught completely off guard. He certainly didn't think that he'd have to undergo what he went through, the beating that he took from the defense. He never expected any of that. I mean, he got to the point where at the end of his 8 days, or 8.5, 9 days, he got off and he hugged the defense lawyers. He was so happy to be off the stand.
As testimony in the OJ Simpson trial closes out for yet another week, the prosecution is facing tough questions. What about the collection of evidence, and what happened to it once it got to the LAPD crime lab? Coming up, did the prosecution present too many witnesses, turning jurors against them? That's next on OJ25. I'm Roger Cossack.